All right, it's back to school season for some. School starts in different times and different places. And so we've made it to the back to school season, and I'm excited that we're back together. It's been a minute since the crew has been together to talk and discuss. So welcome back, everybody. How's everybody been doing?
Great.
Good.
Yep.
It's a good summer. Excitement. Good summer.
Good summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been pretty hot and sweaty all summer.
Here too.
Yeah.
And Bill's in Bill, I bet really where you are, right?
Yeah. Although less sweaty because it's not humid here, but
It's a dry heat.
yeah.
Yeah. So more dehydrated, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like, little salty, the salt sort of dries on the side of your head.
Yes.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have me
Awesome.
thinking about those Georgia O'Keeffe skulls. A cow's walking along and all of a sudden it's
That's a true picture of what I look like every time I go outside in my yard to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we produce maple syrup and we managed to choose the hottest day of the year to be cooking syrup.
Oh, wow.
So far, 90 degrees in the barn. And we were
Yes.
just
Nice.
like, oh, well, at least it's shade.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your syrup has become our late night snack treat. We've been making strawberry Eggo waffles and using your syrup. That's our little nighttime snack around here. So we've been enjoying it immensely.
That's a goodness.
Yeah.
It's a
I was at
goodness.
a restaurant the other day. My sister ordered pancakes, and the waitress said, "Do you want regular syrup or real maple syrup?" And you were from New England. We're like, is there a choice? Like, how is that even a choice? Like, who would ever choose the fake stuff?
Yeah.
I think people do, right? If you haven't experienced real syrup, then maybe you don't know what you're missing.
And some people actually prefer the taste of the not maple syrup, even
Yeah.
after they have it,
That.
which is kind of interesting to me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
We've put together some of our favorite data words, and we're going to share those. And then we also want to talk a little bit about mindset shift because, as Bill says, I think I wrote this down. There is a nonstop, never-ending need for mindset shift, per Bill Shander. So I think we're going to break that down today. We'll do that at the end of our episode. We're going to start out with our favorite data words. So at Think Data, they've asked me to put together my favorite data words for social media content because, it's a beast. You have to constantly be feeding it. And so I've been collecting some of my favorite words to put out there. And to start the conversation, my first word that I put out was normalization. And that word is my favorite because I have been able to help people unlock things if they could understand normalization. And so when I learned that if I could teach normalization, I could open up the doorway to other things, it became one of my favorite data words. So I love the idea of giving our audience and our followers words that we love because we know the impact of them in the training environment. And then they can go research those things and learn even from us because we write about them and talk about them all the time. So favorite data words. You got your thinking caps on? Okay.
Yeah.
So Bill, what's your favorite data word?
Well, and I also want to just comment on normalization if I'm allowed to, because,
please.
I started working with data, 30 plus years ago. And at the time I was mostly doing data-driven website development. So in other words, back in the day where you'd have a database, and so you could have, rather than custom coding 40 pages for your 40 products, you just have a database. You'd do a template and it would just pull from the data to show the right product at the right time. Revolutionary idea. People were hand coding HTML files at the time.
Yes.
And I didn't know anything about data. And so I had to learn about normalization and the idea of like, okay, let's, normalize the database so that all the products are structured the same way so that, you pull it out in a certain way and it displays the way you want it. Long story short, I had to learn normalization the hard way, because when you don't have a well-normalized database, all the pain that you experience when that's the case, right?
Knowledge
so I think
power.
it's a great word.
It is a great word. I love that.
And I didn't even know the word at the time. I didn't know I was normalizing the database. I just learned that you should structure the data this way in order to do this thing you're trying to do. So, I discovered that word at some point in my career, and I agree. It's a very, very good word.
Awesome. Go put that on my post.
Yeah.
So that other people know it's not just me who thinks it's a good word.
Yeah.
No, it's a great word. Normalization's a great word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on normalization, Jenny?
Oh, I have tons of thoughts on normalization. I have many, many thoughts on normalization. But I think, and let's actually, then we'll come back to Bill, because normalization actually leads to what my favorite word is, which is design, right?
Yes.
And if you have bad design, then you often have a database that's not normalized.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a symptom of bad design.
I can't get over it. Yeah. It's
right.
Hard to express my love of this word.
And I shouldn't say this. This is not true. You can actually write enough code to make up for a lack of normalization, but you really wish you hadn't.
Correct.
That is true.
I've
done it.
I've watched people do it. It's like, and just so not everything can you code your way out of, right? So for me, I think that, and maybe normalization is a subset or a skill that's necessary for good design. Maybe it's one of the primary skills that's necessary for good design.
I believe
if your data is not normalized, and you write all that code, and then anything changes, and you get to rewrite all the code. So I guess if your goal is to have a permanent job for yourself as a coding consultant, that works. But if your goal is to have something that's maintainable as you go along, then design has to include normalization. So I would double down on normalization and add good database design, of which normalization is a primary component, because there's other stuff you can get wrong. You can get your data types wrong, right?
Yeah, but if you get your normalization wrong, like it downstream plagues everybody. But like for a standard data analyst, we may not need to know how to apply like normalization, but we need to understand it enough, because that's how we understand the back end of somebody else's design, is how they normalize those tables or didn't over
normalize those tables.
Because
there's a
I was
thing,
about
right?
to say,
oh God,
right? You can over normalize. Go for it, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that, and Ginny, you mentioned this. I can't remember when you were talking about the mindset shift or when we were talking about this part of the conversation earlier. But yeah, there are times where I will intentionally make a mistake. I will design a database that's wrong from a normalization standpoint. But for this application, for this purpose, for today, doing it that way is just easier, faster, and will result in more maintainable code. And it's not the majority of the time, but occasionally the wrong answer is the right answer, even with normalization.
That's cool. Yeah,
good. And then you would document the heck out of that, right?
100%.
Because here you made a choice, and the last thing you want when you've spent all of the time making that choice that's not a typical choice, but is the correct choice in this instance, is somebody comes in behind you, and the first thing they do is undo all that good thinking, because they haven't experienced the problems that drove you to denormalize part of that database.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess I would put as another word document, because you walk into products that somebody developed, and now that somebody is gone. Right. And it's, can you be the person who helps fix this? Right.
Yeah.
And they might have left because they no longer wanted to maintain that monstrosity.
Right.
You just inherited. It's your lucky day.
Well, I'll give you a real example. Like I just did for the neighborhood that I live in, they were using an Excel spreadsheet to manage the directory. And it was formatted, so it was easy to read, but it was really kind of a pain to work in. No one knew if they had the most current version, et cetera. So I was like, hey, why don't we put this thing online? And so, Robin, you'll love this. I used Lovable. I think I told you about that, and made it very quickly and easily. It was wonderful. But the person who was going to be maintaining the data, in addition to me, I was nervous about the maintainability of the data source, never mind the code. And so I wanted to just dumb down, simplify the data structure. And I did it in completely ass backwards way. Like, there's, it's not a relational thing with, multiple tables, which it should be from a technical standpoint. It's just rows. And even like the way I structure the columns, it's just all wrong. It's not normalized whatsoever, but it means I should be able to maintain the data more easily. So for that purpose, it was the right choice. And, sometimes you just got to do it and it's okay. And I had to have a sit down with her to talk about why, even for her, there were a couple of weird decisions that I had to explain. So essentially documenting, so that we can manage this thing down the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump to that next data word.
Yeah. Correlation. I love the word correlation for multiple reasons. Number one, when you think about what data analytics is, what kinds of questions are you tending to try to answer? Well, why is this thing happening? What's going on? And very frequently, the subtext of that is this correlates to that. And so you're not literally always looking for correlation. Obviously, sometimes it's a trend, sometimes it's a different type of a thing. But even a trend is, as time passes, that correlates with this thing occurring. So it's kind of always about correlation if you go philosophically deep enough, I think.
Yeah, that's
so for that reason, I love correlation. And then the other reason is because obviously correlation brings up the most famous phrase in data, right? Correlation doesn't equal causation, which is such an important data concept that people really need to deeply embed into their skulls. And so, I think it's just a great word. It's just one of those words that it just applies to almost everything we do with data.
What percentage, or the folks that you work with, how many of them understand that distinction between, because I hear people talk about looking for correlation, but what they really want to answer is what caused it.
Yeah.
They don't care, for example, that if you buy dog food, you're more likely to choose Ragu, and if you buy cat food, you're more likely to choose Prego. They don't care about that. What they want to know is, how do I increase sales of a particular product, for example? So they're not looking for correlation. Do they understand? Is there that commonly understood or not really?
I don't think so. I mean, that's why we have to constantly remind our clients and the people we work with that correlation does not equal causation. And it's like kind of like mindset shifts. There's a never-ending nonstop need to shift mindsets. There's a never-ending nonstop need to remind people that correlation doesn't equal causation. Because that's what they're looking for. That's what they really need. And B, correlation doesn't give them causation. So you have to sort of, even though maybe you can only prove the correlation, you have to constantly remind them that it doesn't mean you've proven the cause. So yeah, very, very tough thing for sure.
My brain is just exploding. It's like, I want to go. I have, to me, it's like it's both favorite words and then also mindset shift brought on by Ginny's question on how often are people really receiving this correlation. And immediately my brain went to just a week or so ago, I was in a conversation and one of their analysts said, well, I have this finding, and when I look at it, it's statistically significant. So my brain goes, right? Like, let's discuss this. Yeah. Leadership goes, oh yeah, we don't care about that.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? And so I realized in that moment, it's not that leader didn't really care about that. It's that leader didn't understand what that analyst was trying to express by saying it's statistically significant. Those are such critical words. And if they don't understand why that's important in a meeting, then I find it hard to believe that correlation will do anything for them, because they don't know how to test the correlation to see if it was coincidence or not.
Yeah.
Right. So just brain blew up.
And by the way, we should do either another episode or add on to this one of least favorite words. Like, I'll throw a p-value out there immediately,
Yes.
Like, who cares?
It's a good one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
It just depends
who
on
cares?
what world
no one
you're
understands
in.
it.
Yeah. No. Well, I think the reason why nobody cares is because that's what we lead with, right? Like the p-value. It's like, well, tell me why that matters, right? So again, that's a good, least favorite words. We're doing that episode.
All right. I'll make a note. Okay.
I like that one.
Okay. How about least favorite words and concepts?
One of my favorite things about correlation is spurious correlations. That website, I love that. I think everybody should take a look at that. It really helps drive home that things can seemingly look related. Bill, do you ever use that site?
Oh yeah. When I teach data literacy and data analytics, I have a slide that's all about that. It's from that website because they're in. So for those of you who don't know, it's essentially a website with a collection of actual data sets that are actually correlated, but maybe they're not causal. For instance, there is a correlation between the divorce rate in Maine and margarine consumption. And look, I'm actually wearing a Maine t-shirt today. Yeah. And like, so I don't know that one causes the other. And if it did, I don't know which one would cause the other, but yeah, they're correlated. That's all we can say.
Huh. Well, and there's all these correlations between things like skirt length and some specific economic trends.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
I
ice cream cones and shark attacks.
Say that again.
Ice cream cones and shark attacks.
Yeah.
What's the ice cream cone value?
I can't even remember. I just remember going, wait, what? That is definitely not related.
Like ice cream cones cause shark attacks.
Well, something about how many ice cream cones are sold in that area relates to shark attacks. I'd have to go back and look it up, but yeah, crazy.
But see, I could see that as a correlation.
I can too.
Because it has to do with, because it has to do with climate and weather. And that certainly drives shark migration.
Interesting.
It drives the shark migration, and it means a lot of people are hanging out, it's hot out, and they're at the beach eating ice cream.
They're at the beach.
Okay.
And which, by the way, aren't always at the beach. They only go when it's super hot, right?
Yeah.
So they don't recognize warning signs, and they bring out those things that make them look like seals in the water.
So amazing. I did not realize the amount of passion I was going to bring out in both of you.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to add something on top, which is that I discovered a correlation with shark attacks that is apparently real.
Okay.
I think the highest rate of shark attacks occur at this one beach near Daytona, Florida. And the reason, I think, as I understand it, is because there's like an inlet there, essentially like a river that empties out. And it's where like the two different temperatures of water meet, or like the fresh water, if it is fresh, and the salty water meets. And for some reason, just sharks actually just go bananas there. They love it. And it's a place where people surf or do whatever that. At a high level.
So sharks like brackish water. That's
maybe. I think that might be the issue. And I could this could be completely wrong. So nobody yell at us if we got that wrong, but that's my memory of someone telling me that when I was down there.
I'll tell you what's not wrong is I don't get in water for all the things you guys are describing right now.
Except you can come here because welcome to the Great Lakes, which are unsalted and shark free.
Like I just need to be able to see everything under. And if I can't see through it, I am not getting in it.
Come on up.
Too fearful of it.
Come on up. Beautiful crystalline lakes. I went kayaking twice this week. All good.
No, that's amazing. Okay, now that I would definitely do. So we've talked about normalization. You briefly mentioned your favorite word. We outed Bill's word of correlation. And Jenny, you really your word was design. And that again can spur into so many other fantastic words, but tell us about design and why that was your choice.
Well, I thought I already did, but I'll do it again anyway. And then I kind of spun off document too, because that's the bridge that came from where we were before. When you design in such a way that other people, you should document everything you design. I'll just say that. Yeah. Even if the note is normalized to the third normal form period, done. Right. Whatever it is, you should have some documentation that indicates that there was some thoughtfulness behind the design, because lacking documentation, I assume non-professionalism. I'll just say that too.
I think that's fair.
If I take a look and there's no documentation available, then I'm like, oh, that's not a good thing. But the reason that I think design is so important is that really starting with Microsoft Access is a point I would kind of put the pin in, right? Starting with Access 2.0, that's the first point that I really recognized this, was you could build something that was powerful and totally wrong.
Yep.
that, like Access would let you build a database that would get you absolutely no output that remotely resembled the problem you were trying to solve. Yep. And so, and every tool we have now will do that, including AI.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Every single tool that we have, if you can log in, you can design a database that will fail if the goal is to solve a particular reporting problem. Mm-hmm. And so design to me becomes just critical. If you don't understand normalization, if you don't understand data types, if you don't understand the path backwards, right, from what it is you desire to know, yep. What's going to come out the back end, and design forward towards that. Every tool that I think exists will let you do that job in such a way that you'll wish you hadn't. And then we were talking earlier about, folks who like build something and then they move on to something else and you're then called in to help maintain it. And some of the reasons sometimes is that somebody has spent an incredible amount of time building something. It's not their main gig even. Maybe they took a database course, or maybe they, watch 10 YouTube videos, and they sit down and they design something and everybody's geeked out about it. And then they put it in production and then it's failing. Not necessarily blowing up, not necessarily,
probably does great the thing they designed it to do. It's the minute they tried to expand it.
And that's another possibility. They can't expand it. Or, they run a report and they know they have 25 customers, but somehow when they run a report to summarize customer orders, what they get are 1,100 records. Okay. And so it's like, what do I do now? For me, it's the fact that design is something that you really have to understand. It's not a hard thing to understand. It's not something that you have to get an advanced degree to understand. It's something you can understand in a matter of hours. You can really deeply understand design and never second guess yourself after that.
Correct.
The problem is that products will let you do the design without you second guessing yourself in the first place. So right. I'm kind of a design nut, and I'm passionate about it, but a lot of the work I did early in my career was because people did this.
Yes. I spent a lot was built off this.
That's right. Coming in and cleaning up other people's bad database design.
Yeah. Well, it'll write this report, but we need this report. And you get in there, it's like, oh yeah, I know why it's not. Yeah. Yep. I particularly like words like design because one word opens up all the decisions that are about to face you. Like, did they follow relational design? How did they design this? And the answer in pursuing these questions like tells you a lot about what you're about to face at work. I think one thing that I try to help people understand is like, I'm not trying to grow you up to be a designer. I'm not trying to make you a designer. If you are one, great. But everybody who's going to tap into the back end of a system to write a dashboard, write a report, build a presentation, make a decision, like there's a certain amount of design you got to understand to be able to report effectively for what you just said. It will make things happen, and it could be patently wrong. But it looks and feels like it seems like the tool wouldn't continue if it was inaccurate. But they will absolutely do that. And your design is going to dictate what you do. It's just most people are reverse engineering design more than building designs. Right? So it's like, I think it's an important word because you're going to find yourself reverse engineering, not really just building something from. If you get the luck to build something from scratch, you definitely have to have the design theory.
It also, if we take a step back from data, I would argue that the design is actually one of the most important words in the English language for work. I mean, really, because design is planning. Mm-hmm. Design is thinking. Design is problem solving. That's what design is. And so, yes, you need to design a database well. You need to design the interface well that people are going to access that data. You need to design everything. Everything is design. And so this is almost like a mindset shift. This is almost like a perfect segue into the next part of the conversation, because, if you, especially the word design, because like it's such a loaded term. I'm a data person. I don't do design. I don't even know what you mean. Like, do I have to be creative to be a designer? Absolutely not. Design is planning, right? And so it applies to every single thing that we do, every single thing. And so if we can all just sort of think more strategically that way in everything we do, then, everything works out better.
I just, there's just so many thoughts.
It feels to me like design is a sexier word, okay, for the things that we do. And to me, when I talk with people about, when I teach Microsoft Outlook to people, I tell them to separate the times when they're doing routine tasks from the time that they're doing generative or creative tasks. And I absolutely throw any design task into generative or creative. So you don't have to be creative, but you need a creative space to be able to accurately do design, because design is non-routine. And so it's not the same as answering your email or scheduling an appointment that you schedule all the time. It's not the same as summarizing notes from a meeting, which you're going to have AI do for you. Anyway, design is something that actually, hopefully, you create sufficient space that you can actually think about what it is you're doing. Because if you were doing something that you did all the time, you don't need to design it.
You don't even think about the fact that you are designing it. You've lost the touch with your brain is designing that in its subconscious. Right. And so people see us do these things and we're doing all these things, can't see and hear, and they don't know where it's all coming from. It's because we've spent time learning design theory and putting our hands into things. So,
And
like when I walk to the mailbox, I don't have to think about it. But when I go on a hike around the mountains near where I live, I'm designing that hike. I'm thinking about the route I'm going to take. And so, yes, there's the automated task, and then there's the more creative task. And in any example in life, you can use the word design, and I do. Like I say, I've used the phrase many times. Everyone is a designer. At least everyone should be a designer. You should be designing certain experiences, certain things that you do. And some of the stuff doesn't need that thought process, that depth of strategic perspective, let's say.
So if everybody's a designer, which I agree, everybody is a designer. It's just some of us are skilled at it, and some of us are not.
Some of us are conscious that we're doing it, and some of us are not too.
Yes.
Mindset shift.
It is mindset shift. It's a pretty amazing, correlation.
And there's also so we've had a problem in the past. It's a regular problem, right? That you put maple syrup in barrels, and because it's thicker than the alcohol that would go in barrels, like bourbon. It actually is less likely to hydrate the barrel in a way that bourbon would.
Okay.
Right. And therefore the barrel starts to dry out, and it's because the sugar content of the maple syrup, and the longer you leave the maple syrup in, the more likely it is your barrel's going to leak. Okay. Wow. And there are lots of strategies you can do around that. You can spray them down with water, you can put, but inevitably I have 3 barrels, 150 gallons of maple syrup sitting in bourbon barrels. And inevitably, some of it ends up on the floor. And it's been very, very annoying to me. Okay. And so I decided I was going to solve the problem this time by the barrels sitting cradles on their sides. I was going to actually build a system. Okay. So planning that system for me involves getting out a pen and paper. It involves all of this, and it involves cutting things and dry fitting them before I do it. Now, if a carpenter had come in to do this, they wouldn't have needed to do any of those extra steps I do, because this is what they do. A rough carpenter, day in and day out, I would just say, the guy who did a lot of work for me, Patrick, this is what I need. And I would see him use a tape measure, but he wouldn't be using a piece of paper and doing all this stuff, because it is routine for him. That level of super basic design. I mean, I'm building with 4x4s. How hard can it be? But it is designed for me because I don't do it often enough. I've never done exactly this, and I don't do carpentry anymore often enough to just take it for granted. So I think there's a piece of what's planning for me, what's designed for me may be routine tasks for some other people, and the other way around, right?
That's good. That's good.
Meanwhile, I just had a correlation pop into my brain, and I hope you know the answer to this, Ginny. You seem to know a lot of things. Are you familiar with I can't remember the proper name for it, but I think it's essentially the Great Molasses Flood in Boston?
Yes.
Was that for that reason? Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, there's a giant molasses barrel in Boston, like the size of a building, and it leaked, and it literally was like a rush of a flood of molasses, and dozens or hundreds of people were killed. I mean, it was a horrific, really bad situation back in like 1800 sometime, I think, or maybe turn of the century. And was that because of what you just described, Jenny? Was that like, do you have any idea? Is that why the thing?
What caused it? Or? Yeah.
It feels to me like there had to have been some connection between those two things, because I believe at that time they would still have been using wood. I know there's a book about it. I know it was published by Beacon Press in Boston, but I can't remember the name of the book. It was published maybe 12 or 13 years ago about the Great Molasses Flood.
Okay.
I bet it's something flawed in the design.
Yeah.
or in the maintenance. I mean, it's just like everything's fine for 6 months. Everything's fine for however long. And then all of a sudden, one day it's not fine anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And isn't that the case with so many things we build? Right.
Yes.
The circumstances change.
I'm reading this book, The Johnstown Flood, which is something I've heard of. I know that this thing happened, a flood in Johnstown, but I never knew the story behind it. And very similar, like catastrophic failure more on the maintenance side than on the design side, probably. Yeah.
I had a friend who actually grew up, whose parents were involved, a friend much older than me, but a friend whose parents lost siblings. Both of them lost siblings in that flood.
How about that?
There was like, and I wondered afterwards, isn't it weird, like the two people happen to not be, but I think what happens is you come back, you're not there when it happens, and you come back and there's a cohesion around the community. And they've been hit, and Johnson had been hit twice more since then, right? Pennsylvania.
Wow.
But for different reasons. And if you want to have like a bad day and you live near water, just look up the number of bridges and dams that we have that actually have expired by decades that haven't been kept up.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to take us back to mindset shift, especially around the idea of design. Things fail, things age out. Right. And they have to, like, when they age out, they have to be modernized with the design. Right. Like, so when you said that design word is a word for all things, I really actually believe you're absolutely right. Like, if we were to do root cause analysis, pretty much everything's going to come back down to somewhere in the design. Right. So when you don't think of yourself as a designer, like what will we tell our followers about how to build their design game? And in my mind, if you're dealing with databases and systems and data analysis, you're going to learn about relational database design. You will need to understand. So what are some other areas people can kind of study so they can start shifting their mindset around the word design? Any other thoughts on that?
I mean, I think, this gets to my initial statement about mindset shift, which is that there's a constant, never ending need for mindset shift. And therefore, what I mean by that is that the biggest, most important lesson that we all need to learn, whether you're talking about database design or anything else, dam design, for example, is that the default response, the default plan, the default request from a stakeholder, however you want to phrase it or look at it, should always, always, always be assumed to maybe be wrong. So in other words, we're going to design the dam this way because that's how we always do it. Okay, maybe that's a good plan. But if you don't step back and design it and just literally think it through, like, why are we doing it this way? Is there another way to consider? Then it might fail down the road. You might just be doing the wrong thing. So the number one first lesson is engage what I call your useful paranoia. Essentially assume Every single thought, every single plan, every single task might be wrong, and just probe at it, just investigate it. And you'll have to learn the specific skills to investigate it. To your point, I have to learn how to normalize. I have to learn about relational database design, etc. But before that, you have to remember that you should learn those things, that you have to investigate those things. So start with useful paranoia. Always, always, always.
I love it.
When you popped up, Bill, with the need for continuous mindset shift, what it took me back to was W. Edwards Deming and continuous quality improvement, right? Which is a huge movement in 1950s, 60s, 70s, more in Japan. This is why the Japanese automotive industry got to be so strong at a time that the American auto industry didn't. For more information, read On a Clear Day, You Can See General Motors. But it has to do with a shift, a primary shift from the way that we inspected for quality. And that's why it ties back to this, because continuous quality improvement before CQI, the way we inspected to make sure that, let's say, a box of toaster ovens was good, was we pulled 5 or 6 out at random and checked them. And if they were good, the whole batch was good.
Right.
And Deming said there's a better way to do it. We can do it with data. And the entire field of statistical process control gets built, where we're making sure we don't care as much. It's not that we don't care, but rather than shifting to some random, let's pull 2 or 3 things out, we were actually looking at, is the machine that is making the toaster ovens staying true to its design? Is every piece of metal coming out exactly the same? And we were doing that with data as opposed to with a human look. And before that, there were things like, I was raised in Flint, Michigan, and you knew never to buy a car that was built on a Monday or the day before a holiday. And you knew what the code was in the VIN at that time that you could tell. You could walk up, open the car door and look and go, not this one. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks.
Right? Because, because those were the days that there were more faults that were built into vehicles. So I think you're proposing like that, Deming had CQI, you're like CMI, continuous mindset improvement.
Yeah, I like it.
And I agree with you that the need to imagine always that there's another way to look at it, and to start really from base zero each and every time, to question the assumptions. And for those of you who don't know, Bill is the author of an absolute great book about stakeholder whispering, and that you can learn a lot about how you can have those conversations in a way that you still have employment when you're done.
So right, and it's for everybody, right? It's just as much for the stakeholder as the whisperer. Like I think it's a good read for everybody involved, because everybody's a stakeholder and we're all whispering. I just think there are some challenges when you say, for some people, including myself, when I hear some of it's like, question everything is wrong, assume it may be wrong, but you're really requiring and asking people to probe. You're not suggesting just assume it's wrong and go your own way. You're saying make the assumption that it needs to be critically thought through, and that you are tasked and you're going to stand behind it. You're going to stand up to that scrutiny. So you really want to look and say, okay, is this what that leader is actually thinking? Because I would want you to tell me as a leader, oh, wait, no, you thought that? That's not true. That's not true. I vetted it. So I think it's good. I think sometimes when people hear it on the face of it, though, they might go, ooh, no, you don't question the leader. But you're not really calling for people to question the leader. You're calling them to be critical thinkers. I love it.
100%. That's
good
it.
It's
like
everybody.
It's not question everything because everything might be wrong, but it might be. It might be wrong. It might be right, and it might be sort of gray area in between. And so just investigate
I love
everything. And by the way, I quote W. Edward Deming in the book because one of his most famous quotes that people always attribute to other people, like Peter Drucker usually gets credit for this one, but it was actually Deming who said, "You can't manage what you don't measure." And that's what we're talking about, right? And so, look at it critically, investigate it, truly probe at it, and then, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, etc.
Yes.
I'm going to make note of that word because we're going to talk about that word on another.
Which one? Measure.
Measure. A lot of people think you can't measure everything. It's like, well,
I can do a whole day on this.
We can just, we're going to have a measurement lesson. I can feel it in my bones.
It's in my bones. All of the things you quote can't measure, which is just so much fun. And the flip side of that is only measure what matters.
Yeah.
Right. Which that comes to me out of education. When, it's like measure, right? Because what you measure is what people then will teach to.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wasn't going to get into this, but my book, there's like a sub theme to the book, which is that the quote industrial complex is completely broken because no one ever said the quotes that you attribute to them. Like it's almost all universally false. And I think, in fact, the quote that I just gave to W. Edward Deming isn't actually what he said. I think that what he said was actually something to the effect of what you measure is what you end up managing. To your point, Ginny, like, if you measure the dumb stuff, you're going to orient your whole business towards the dumb stuff. And then
manage to the dumb stuff.
Good. So good.
That's exactly right. And the things that you say you're going to measure on tests. I mean, this is why it comes out of education. As soon as we decided that the best way to measure student achievement was by testing, right? Which is, and a specific kind of test, right? We're not talking about building a portfolio and stuff like that. We're talking about specific kinds of standardized tests. And as soon as you move to that, then everybody starts teaching to the standardized test.
Yeah.
And nobody necessarily ever ask the question, are the things on the standardized test really the outcomes we want students to have?
Right.
Right. So they missed that very first question because most of the tests already existed. So it's, it's this kind of circular thing that we get into.
Yeah.
A great example of false correlation, by the way, right? Like the kids who do better on the test are the ones who perform better in school. Therefore, the test proves that they're smarter. It proves they're going to be successful in that school, which oriented its teaching towards the people who did that. This is like an endless looping conversation. It's great.
And towards
I'm going to just keep my mouth, because of my nature of my work, I'm going to keep my mouth shut on this. But I will say that these education statistics that we talk about and these tests that we are mentioning here, all this information is publicly available. And I really encourage people to just seek out the word public education data and look at what the design is, because if we go back to our words, design is in everything, right? So I'll just leave it at that and keep my.
But I'm going to tell a little sideways sort of self, like when I'm going to self-tell a story, right? So I had a new client that I was pretty excited about. I will not mention the client and I will not mention their location. But what they want to do is they wanted to do some work in Excel, particularly around charting. This is back when they want to do a dashboard all in Excel. And so I go out and I pull out a data set that I've used a million times, like let's look at a data set about student achievement.
Oh.
And I pull it up and I pop it on the screen. And this is like one of the measures that's being used is what percentage of the folks who start their ninth grade education in this state actually graduate. And I say, so let's see where y'all are.
Oh, no.
And I scroll and I scroll and I scroll. No. 5-0. They were the 50th state for that statistic. And I knew I was never coming back to see that client again because they assumed I had never had to scroll that far before. I actually didn't even know where they were or why. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm like, to continue. Like, what do you...
Yeah.
Fortunately, these folks were not at all in the education business. If they had been, I probably wouldn't have finished that day.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's just kind of interesting. And did I walk around and when I was there first, I was there for a week. I'm walking around, I'm not noticing that the young people seem significantly duller or anything else. I mean, so these folks are being measured on a specific series of something, but at some point along the line, folks, it might have been that the economy was great for 17-year-olds and they all dropped out of school and started their own small businesses. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I do know that I now look at my data sets more carefully before I go see clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People don't like to see the truth. And in order to impact real change, we have to be willing to face that truth in the data. And it is sometimes very hard for people when they have their mindset where they believe that the things that they are doing are actually impacting change, but they're not working with design. They're not working with normalized data. They're not testing for statistical significance. They're not measuring correlation. They're maybe not even measuring the right things. So all of it combined together is how we can really impact change across any type of data set that needs to be studied. But yeah, I one of my exciting things in my mind about Gen AI is the ability to study data that we don't get to study, because we now have tools that allow us to go grab some of this data and actually study it. So I hope we see educational change in my lifetime, where we talk about how the positives, and it's not just all testing and preparing for tests and
positive educational change.
I want to see positive educational change. I think
because there's been plenty of change. I mean, there's been a sweeping change.
They change all the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that might
There's been a lot of change in education.
Consider. Yeah, it just changes constantly.
So what's your mindset shift, Robin?
So yeah, when I was thinking about the episode and thinking about mindset shift, I just was really just deeply thinking about what are some of the moments that I hit where I realize I'm about to face either my mindset has to shift, or I'm going to have to make the case for the person on the other side, their mindset to shift. And for me, it's the data governance conversation. So when I think about being faced with the situation of adjusting mindset, it's usually beginning with me when we discuss data governance. When an organization looks at me like they don't understand what I'm talking about, I know I'm about to be in it thick, because I got to start at the beginning. When they think they have a data governance strategy, but we start to see holes in it, and we talk about data governance, like, how fiercely they protect it, when the whole goal, like if it was working super great, like we wouldn't be having maybe some of these conversations, but those are really hard to have with a customer you're trying to protect, So usually when I'm presented with mindset shift, the thing that comes to mind most dramatically is in data governance.
Which goes right back to your point before, that people don't like bad news. And that's never good news in any company, because no one has really nailed data governance almost.
No.
And some people don't try. I mean, it's sort of like the security through obscurity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody else's problem. Yeah.
Or having conversations with sort of mid-sized companies or folks in the not-for-profit sector. And it's like, but you do maintain databases of things that people would want to steal and would find important.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, nobody's going to look at us. It's like they look at me. They look at me like, do you really think we're like that big? And it's like I'm saying, like little things. There are little tiny improvements you could make, but one of them is realizing that there's almost no data right now there's no good data that is worthless right now. Right. Because if your data is available, and then this other organization's data is available, and these folks' data is available, now there's some real data that's worth selling.
Now we start putting them all together. Yeah. You're going to wish you taught your people to join data while the hackers are joining it.
That's right.
So they've joined your data already better than your people have. Train your people. Yeah.
You'd like in a perfect world or a more perfect business setting, we'd be making some of the investments we make around data governance, around public relations work, around all of these things before we were in the newspaper, before we eroded all brand confidence.
That's right.
But it's so much easier to make the sale afterwards because you don't have to make the case.
Yeah.
I think what happens to me, if I'm being really honest, is like I know the majority of the problems that people are bringing to me to solve are solved by initially starting with, let's get a handle on data governance, right? Like I can just solve a lot of problems in an organization if I can get them to be open to the idea of governing their data. And really what's fascinating to me is they have ideas that maybe they don't need it, or And it's like, well, but you already have it. You just don't have it documented and you don't have it under control. It's actually governing you and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty triggering for me, but it's really out of desire for people to learn how to framework up their processes and back to design.
I was about to say that's design again, for sure.
It's back to design.
It's about security design and governance design. Yeah. And sometimes it's about cheapness. I mean, I'll be clear. It's so hard. If your organization does not invest in technology for employees and ask them to use their own PCs at home, you know what I mean? Like there's a piece like we save money. We don't provide PCs for our people because they've all got them, or they can use stuff on their phones, their own phones. What do you know about their phones? It's like, and there's this piece of, we don't have to worry about it. And it's like, until the day you do.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I know a company who has data that is mission critical to their business and is highly, what's the word? It's very private data. It's the data that should not be out in the world.
Okay.
And it is sitting on a server with deprecated OS and deprecated PHP and software that was written like 14 years ago. This is like,
and it's connected to the internet?
On the internet. This is a web-based application.
Wow. You asked for it.
No security updates for like 4 or 5 years. Like this thing is the most vulnerable thing out there. And every year I just send them an email saying, I think it's time to rebuild this thing or retire this thing. And, you know, and it's purely about, you know, cheapness and the struggle that it would be to actually rebuild this thing.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely security by obscurity, and it's 100%, you know,
you got no choice anymore.
Someday some bot is going to discover the server and it's going to be really, really bad.
You're toast.
And, and there it is. And there's the difference. It doesn't even have to be a hacker looking. It just has to be somebody clicking a button, sending it out and seeing what comes back. And it's like, oh, that's tasty and easy.
There's automated bots out there searching for vulnerable servers at all times, right?
That's right.
And as soon as one gets exploited, they publish out, here's the exploitation, and they all unite. Okay, well, guys, I know Bill has a hard stop, so we got to get out of here for this episode. But this has been super fun. I hope we can come back together again and talk about some more fun data words, and hopefully everybody who's following us can learn something new after this episode. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
See you next time.